stay safe.
Championing solidarity, sustainable development, and South-South cooperation are foundational to the United Nations. The contributions to UN peacekeeping forces are unmatched and irreplaceable, and their commitment to multilateral solutions is an antidote to our ailing world. Across the globe, democracy is eroding, populism and extremism are increasing, our climate is heating, and trust in institutions of all kinds is breaking down. The global economy is faltering, and many developing countries are caught in the jaws of a debt crisis, unable to pay their bills or to invest in sustainable development, climate action, or digital technologies. The share of official development assistance going to Africa is at its lowest level in more than 2 decades. And high interest rates put private finance largely out of reach of so many countries. Meanwhile, conflicts are multiplying, and human rights and international law are being flouted, from Russia's invasion to the Ukraine, to Sudan, and to the Middle East. The relentless Israeli bombardment of Gaza in response to the horrific terror attacks by Hamas is the most intensely destructive campaign waged since I became Secretary General. The number of civilian casualties, including women, children, and our own staff, is unprecedented in such a brief period of time. It continues to rise, and hunger and disease are now adding to the toll. More than 100 days after 7 October, more than 100 hostages are still being held, and they must be released immediately and unconditionally. And I will not give up on calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. That is the only way to end this nightmare for civilians in Gaza, facilitate the release of all hostages, and prevent the conflict from engulfing the entire region. The refusal to accept the two-state solution for Israel and Palestinians and the denial of the right to statehood to the Palestinian people are unacceptable. This would indefinitely prolong a conflict that has become a major threat to global peace and security, exacerbate polarization, and embolden extremists everywhere. The right of the Palestinian people to build their own state must be recognized by all. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, my messages to the non-aligned movement and the G77 plus China focused on renewed international efforts for peace, financing for sustainable development and climate action, and the need for urgent reforms to our multilateral institutions. From the United Nations Security Council to the Bretton Woods system, global institutions reflect the world that built them 80 years ago, when many African countries were still colonized. They are no longer fit for purpose. Security Council is stuck in a time warp. How can we accept that it still lacks a single African permanent member? The global financial system is outdated, dysfunctional, and unfair. This September, the United Nations will convene the Summit of the Future with a focus on updating these institutions so that they align with today's world and respond to today's challenges, notably to the vital interests of developing countries. Governments will also consider our proposed new agenda for peace, which sets out initiatives around disarmament, conflict prevention, tackling terrorism and transnational crime, and managing the security threats, including those posed by artificial intelligence. The new agenda for peace calls for a new generation of peace operations, including peace enforcement and counter-terrorism operations, led by regional partners, notably the African Union, but with a Security Council mandate and supported by guaranteed funding, including through UN-assessed contributions. I've been urging this for many years, and I welcome the Security Council's recent resolution in support. As a matter of fact, it does make sense to have peacekeeping operations where there is no peace to keep. We need peace-enforcing operations African peace enforcing operations, but properly supported by the international community. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, peace and sustainable development go hand in hand. Developing countries have a large and growing share of the global economy, but their representation in global financial institutions lags far behind. September Summit of the Future will consider ways to reform the global financial architecture and make it truly universal and responsive to today's global challenges. In the immediate term, we need urgent action on debt, including a reprieve for countries facing unsurmountable debt repayment obligations over the next 3 years. And we also need faster progress on an SDG stimulus of $500 billion a year in accessible long-term finance for sustainable development. Multilateral development banks must be adequately capitalized and must change their business models to leverage far more private finance for developing countries at reasonable cost to invest in the SDGs. And developed countries must meet their pledges on climate finance, clarifying the delivery of the $100 billion and doubling adaptation finance are an essential starting point for much greater ambition. The unity and tenacity of the Global South helped to create the Loss and Damage Fund, but it now needs significant contributions to fulfill its purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, the United Nations is working around the world to support the efforts of developing countries to mobilize domestic resources and maximize investments in the SDGs. Strong, cohesive societies can only be built on a foundation of advancing sustainable development, respecting human rights, and recognizing the rights of minorities and standing up to all forms of discrimination. It is critical to uphold the basic human rights of every person, regardless of background, race, religion, sexual orientation, or political opinion. Here in Kampala, governments from the Global South have stressed the importance of multilateral solutions based on global justice and international law. Their strong voices will resonate across the year of global reforms. This is the only path to a safer, fairer, more peaceful world for all, and I thank you.
Over the years, the ways in which Botswana consume food has changed. This has been the result of a myriad of things: lifestyle changes, laws and regulations, as well as availability of food. The way food is grown, preserved, and prepared has changed to meet the needs of a more fast-paced country, and this in turn has affected our diets. Let's find out how the eating habits of Botswana have changed and the various ways in which food is grown and preserved now as compared to years ago.
Nna jaaka ke setse ke tswa go itlhalosa gore ke monkemedi dingalo ke monni wa bobono ke lema mo loteng le bitswa gote mosalakwane wa yes Batswana ba hetoga hela jaaka nna go tsena mo dijong tsa Setswana jaaka ke ne ke tlhalosa bontsi ja rona re le Batswana re setse re kile ra inakanya thata le go ja dijo tse di nang le mahura re tsaya gore gongwe ke gone mo ka nnang botoka mo mebeleng ya rona kana go tokagatsa mebele ya rona go a lebega Batswana re huduga ko tsone dijo tsa mohuta o tse ke reng tse di nang le mahura le metswako e e rileng mme Batswana ba ya ko dijong tsa segabone e leng mabele.
My name is Monet Satibe. I'm the manager for Chobe Fish Farm and Chobe Farms in Kasane. The trend that the people have is they are more likely to come and buy, I would use a banana. In winter time when we didn't have bananas, people will fight non-stop. And when you do have bananas, people don't buy. So it is an up and down. When the season is there, it is all depending on price.
So this is my farm, my field, Motapala Dipo, Tonota East. I look at the nutritional needs and also the supply needs. normally you will find out if, let's say, for example, like Kadinawa, when you supply beans, they will want more. But when you cannot produce that much, considering what I have. But if at all I had more, I could produce more so that the customer, they get what they need. They get satisfied, and the suppliers also.
Ke bitiwa Elizabeth Dineo Swarts Mokomo. Tota rona balemi hela rotlhe re ne ra itumella tshwetso ya ga tautona. Le ha nne re senana kwa teng go sana ditamati go sana bo green pepper. Mo gantsi we have two main big farmers ba tapole le onions. And by then in the season go supply wa tsone di product tseo. Le rona ne re lekile go lema cabbage. Problem re ke re na rana le serious climate change leng gore ene ya bola dijalo tsa rona. Mme no ska ke wa tlhoka sengwanyana hala sa gore o reke we go itshetsa ka sone. Mme ke gone mo re neng ga re thusa gore re le Batswana re bone gore tota go tswala di border go re putsa matlho thata gore kante mme re na le bokgoni.
It actually boosted our business a bit because we started supplying all over Botswana, especially on our bananas, our pawpaws. So we managed to fill the gap because we have quite a number of trees and fruits that we do supply all over Botswana.
Ne ke na le committee e ke eteletseng pele e bitswa go Tetemodijo Farmers Society. It's a registered society. Di kantse ne re di bua re le committee nngwe ya tsone ke yone ya gore re ka dira jang gore batho ba rotloetsege re ka dira jang gore batho ba kgone go lemoga jaaka gongwe rona re le committee re se dire lemogile gore batho ba tlhoka eng se ba tshwanetseng go se ja.
We do consider our customers' dietary and nutritional needs. We make sure that when we do our plants, we have like the maize, we keep white maize, our bananas, sweet potato and pawpaws, also watermelon. So we make sure that we feed them and all the nutrients is covered.
Mme re bone Batswana tota ba nna positive towards se re nang le sone mo tshimong. Ke gape re bone gore yaanong Batswana ka bontsi ba joina yaanong ba tla gone ha everyday ba tla go benchmarka ba bona gore gone mme rona re dira jang.
We also look into the ways suppliers ensure that Botswana have the highest quality of food to meet their lifestyle needs, especially after the recent shortage of vegetables put pressure on them to fill the gap.
When we look at the issue, the health condition, for example, you find that for someone who is sick or someone who is malnourished, someone who has a condition like cancer, their nutritional needs will be higher than someone who is healthy or who is not sick. Someone who is also maybe obese, they need to lose weight, their nutritional needs would be lower than the other person. So that's why really the nutritional needs vary.
While fruits and vegetables are generally good for wellness, the way in which they are grown and preserved
Dumela Batswana betso o ke Calvin Pukunzi wa Calvin Investment. Mme se re tlo buang ka sone tsatsi la gompieno ke mo re go bitsa re ke money mentalities. Gore re le batho re kgaogantswe ka group tse 5. Gona le mo go bidiwang gotwe ba ba kobo dikhutshwane ba ba go tlase ba ileng gore ba tshela day to day mentality. Ga bo go nna ba ba latelang ba week to week mentality. Go go nna le ba month to month mentality. Ga bo go nna le ba year to year mentality and decade to decade mentality. Pharologanyo ya batho ba ke ba lebella madi ka go sa tshwaneng le ka di mentality tse ba nang le tsone. Mme ano ga o lebella group ya ntlha e re bitsa re ke group 1 ya day to day mentality ke batho ba e leng gore dikakanyo tsa bone di felela mo letsatsing sengwe le sengwe se o se buang le bone o tla utlwa ntse a re ka moso nkgantele la ga o adima madi mo go ene o gore a re o tla ntuela leng ka moso kana nkgantele ga mora re ga kgwedi e fela a ka nna gore a re kgwedi nna ke tla bo ke sule o batla dilo tsa tsatsi le letsatsi mme mowa o ntseng yalo ga se mowa wa madi ba bangwe ba ba latelang ba group 2 ba re ba bitsa re ke bahumanegi ba ba latelang group 1 ke ba e leng gore ba lebelela sengwe le sengwe ka week to week mentality sengwe le sengwe se o se buang le bone se felela mo bekeng ke ha beke e fela nkadime ho ke tla go neela ha beke e fela le go amogela ba rata go amogedisiwa ka beke mme botshelo ba beke ga se botshelo ba madi ga bo go nna le group 3 e re e bitsa re ke ba month to month mentality ha e leng gore bone nako le nako ba lebelela sengwe le sengwe ka leitlho la kgwedi fela o tla bona a nna mo ntlong ya e kolotang a e duela kgwedi fela a lebeletse TV kgwedi fela diaparo tse di apereng kgwedi fela